Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post. I am Radi Francis, bringing you a new episode of WION's weekly show, where we get you all things new from the world's most volatile region. This week on the show, we debunk a Western report about my country, my home, Lebanon. We also get you the latest about the turmoil within Israel. And also on the show, we discuss Saudi Arabia's 2030 crippled vision. This and a lot is lined up, but first, as usual, let's take a quick look at the headlines.
In the wake of over 1,300 deaths that were reported during Hajj, an annual Muslim pilgrimage, scientists now say that climate change is responsible for the abnormally high temperature. The Financial Action Task Force removes Turkey from the money laundering grey list after the body said that the country met required conditions. Senior official of the Palestinian Liberation Authority rejects a move by Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who promoted establishing new Jewish settlements in occupied West Bank.
Israel is facing crises outside its borders and within as well. In the latest, the rift between Benjamin Netanyahu and the military forces in Israel is growing. The Israeli leader's wife made some serious claims. In the following report, we ask, is the Israeli military forces plotting a coup? Listen in.
Protests have become a new normal in Israel. Hundreds and thousands are out in the streets yet again. In Jerusalem, Israelis have renewed the call against Netanyahu's government to be overthrown. The march, which began at the entrance of the city, went up to Netanyahu's official residence. Similar scenes of chaos and demonstrations erupted in Tel Aviv, with thousands demanding elections for a political change of guard.
I've been protesting against Bibi for 6 years now, and I'm sorry that we were not able to prevent him from forming a government.
In Israel's Near Barak, ultra-Orthodox Jews clashed with the police over a court ruling to draft ultra-Orthodox Jewish men into military service. The Haredis blocked a road, holding up signs and chanting against the order.
We will not go to the Israeli army, whatever happens. We will first sitting in prison for 10 years and not go to the Israeli army. And we will fight for this till the bitter end.
Since 1984, Israel's Haredi Jews have been exempted from enlisting for mandatory military service. They're allowed to continue their religious study instead, but the latest ruling nullifies the exemption, much against the Haredi community's wishes. The matter has, for long, been a flashpoint in Israeli politics. Analysts say the recent ruling could break Netanyahu's coalition government. The Prime Minister is already in a delicate position, with the war in Gaza dragging out and no hostage deal still in sight. But it seems that political winds are swiftly shifting. This past week, the Israeli Prime Minister's wife made a shocking allegation. Sarah Netanyahu claimed that Israeli military's top brass are planning a coup to overthrow her husband. In a related incident, the Israeli leader's son, Yair Netanyahu, questioned the whereabouts of Israeli Air Force commander Tomer Bar during the October 7 Hamas attack. The accusations have laid bare a wide rift between Netanyahu and the Israeli Defense Forces. The latest statement by Sarah Netanyahu, though unsubstantiated, hints at how increasingly isolated the Prime Minister has become. It remains to be seen if a potential fallout with Israeli army will be the last nail in the coffin of Netanyahu's political career.
For months now, we have been reporting about the atrocities in Palestine, in the West Bank and in Gaza. Now, in the latest, a new incident, a horrific incident, came to light in the West Bank. Israeli soldiers were caught on camera in video committing human rights abuses again. Take a look.
Gaza remains under siege. Its population battling a mountain of crisis. From relentless airstrikes to ground operations by Israeli forces to war-induced famine that has put over half the population on the edge of starvation. But that's not all. As Gaza remains at the epicenter of a catastrophe, the scenes from occupied West Bank are equally disturbing. The region is not officially under war, but it has long been fighting a battle of a different kind. Human rights abuse by Israeli soldiers. The latest viral video from Jenin once again puts a spotlight on Israelis brutalizing and torturing Palestinian men in the West Bank. The visuals are horrifying and chilling. It shows an injured Palestinian man tied to the hood of an Israeli military jeep as IDF troops drove the vehicle down the road. The army first said that Mujahid Abadi was a suspected militant. Eventually, the Israeli army admitted he was not a threat to the forces. The 24-year-old is alive, but the damage for Abadi has been done. The gruesome act caught on tape sparked global outrage.
Two of the soldiers grabbed my hands and two others grabbed my feet and started waving me back and forth and throwing me into the front of the military car. But I fell to the ground. They picked me up again and threw me into the front of the military car, and I can't describe the temperature of the bonnet of the car. I stayed there for about a quarter of an hour. They moved the car backwards and forwards, and after a quarter of an hour, they got me off the bonnet of the military car.
Even Israel's closest ally, the United States, condemned the ghastly incident.
It was shocking. The practice was absolutely unacceptable. Humans should never be used as human shields.
Critics lashed out at the Israeli army, accusing it of using a Palestinian civilian as a human shield. The very same claim that Israel has made against Hamas, alleging that the group hides in Gaza's defense areas and uses civilians as human shields in the crossfire. The IDF is now on the back foot. It has admitted to the abuse by its troops. Israeli military officers have said the incident is under investigation and that it does not reflect their values. But this is not an isolated case. Raids by the IDF and settler violence has been a common sight for years in the West Bank, even before the October 7th attack last year. Israeli troops in the West Bank have kept up the practice of detaining hundreds of Palestinians, including children. Many of them still languish in Israeli prisons with no official charges against them. For those who were released after months in jail, the tales of torture and abuse are horrifying. The United Nations and several rights groups have highlighted the human rights abuses by Israeli forces in the West Bank. Every now and then, one such incident is filmed and made accessible for the world to see. There is no way to know how many such incidents happen in the West Bank that go undocumented. The question remains, if incidents like these do not reflect what the Israeli army claims are its values, why are they a common occurrence in a territory that Israel has long occupied? And why have circumstances not changed despite the outrage?
Apart from the strikes and the border tensions, Lebanon is fighting a different type of war, a narrative war. In the following report, we debunk a false Western media report about Lebanon's Beirut airport. Take a look. This war may have a definite shape in Gaza. A besieged strip crumbling under strike after strike from the very same military that controls what and who comes in and out of it. But when we speak about Lebanon, everything is very different than Gaza. Lebanon is a recognized legitimate state, the smallest and the most diverse nation in West Asia. Its modern outlook and lifestyle defining why it has a high tourism footfall. A critical part of this country is the Hezbollah group. Hezbollah is not an unknown underdog. It is a part of the social fabric, of the parliament and government. Since the ongoing war began 8 months ago, several reports propagating narratives and fake news have become common, an indispensable part of the war. Unsubstantiated reports which several stakeholders released and cited about the October 7 attack and ever since. Now, Lebanon has been no exception to these targeted reports and fake news, which makes ground events more critical when decoding war possibilities in Lebanon. This time it was an internationally recognized newspaper that published a story criminalizing the Beirut airport. The UK-based Telegraph claimed, with no substantiation, that the capital's airport is being used as a base by Hezbollah. The claim is one that the Lebanese government and its people took seriously. The country's ministers wasted no time in debunking the Telegraph's claims. Top leaders descended to the airport with cameras and press to prove the accusations wrong. Ali Hamiyeh, Lebanon's Minister of Transport, Walid Nassar, Minister of Tourism, and Ziad Makari, Minister of Communications, all officially respond to the story, striking down the baseless claims. Hezbollah, on the other hand, has a different message. Here in Beirut, Hezbollah denies even needing to use the civilian Beirut airport. Hezb has access to airports in Syria, Iraq, and maybe Yemen. And regarding the commotion about the latest reports, I contacted Hezbollah sources and they commented, regardless of the reports, the Israelis wouldn't dare to attack Beirut airport because they know that within minutes we would retaliate and hit back Ben Gurion airport, unquote. Why was Lebanon's top leadership so quick to jump into action? What made debunking this report so critical? The reasons are many. For months now, tensions between Hezbollah and Israeli forces have been escalating. Every month, Israeli officials issue statements on an impending attack on Lebanon. A new deadline is set every month. While on the diplomatic front, global leaders are trying to stop a full-blown Israel-Lebanon war. It is feared that reports like these will be used as leverage by Israeli forces to mount attacks. In the past 8 months, Israeli forces have struck and destroyed most of Gaza's functioning hospitals and densely populated refugee camps. The attacks are always backed by one justification: a claim that Hamas leaders and militants were hiding among civilians in camps and inside medical facilities. A report without evidence on Hezbollah presence at a commercial airport in Lebanon is feared to have the same ramification. The Beirut airport is the lone functioning international airport in Lebanon, the only gateway for tourists amid simmering economic crisis. Lebanon's tourism industry is worth billions of dollars.
For a nation fighting back regional volatility, it is the diaspora that pumps life into the economy. In the past month alone, local reports reveal that close to 500,000 people have entered Lebanon, a number far higher than the footfall witnessed by Israeli airports since the war began in October last year. According to the Lebanese ministry, this is also what makes the Beirut airport a target.
It is time to talk about the Islamic Republic of Iran. The sudden death of the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi paved way for a fresh round of elections. Now, in the following report, we try to explain and decode what are the new expectations and the challenges facing the coming President of Iran. Take a look.
An untimely death of a president in office set the stage for premature elections in Iran. Voters are out to cast their ballot, but the choices are limited. Iran's Guardian Council had the final say in who, according to them, is a worthy candidate. 80 candidates entered the race to be president. The hardline council approved 6 and barred all 7 of the women candidates. As voting day arrived, 2 hopefuls, both conservatives, already dropped out. How do voters feel about the choices they have been offered? And is there hope for change?
I was unsatisfied with the current situation. I was not happy, so I came to vote. I don't expect too much of a change, but I wanted to vote for my favorite candidate. I don't think there would be a big change.
For the chosen ones, the presidency will be an uphill task. 5 of the presidential candidates are former IRGC officers. The Arab nation stares at a Pandora of issues. The biggest among them is an inflation crisis, triggered by US and UK sanctions. Tehran's funds and assets worth billions have remained frozen. An ongoing war poses a threat of greater regional spillover. More importantly, Iran-US talks stand at a crucial and delicate juncture.
The biggest challenge is the economic challenge for the people of Iran. Alongside that is diplomacy and job security and internal stability. This is what this election and this vote is about. The frontrunners or competition is between conservatives or the right-wingers, 3 candidates from the right-wingers, that is Mustafa Pur Mohammadi, Bakr Ghalibaf and Saeed Jalili, whereas there's only one unified candidate of the reformers, of the left-wing party, the reformers, which is Masoud Pezeshkian. By the looks of it, Masoud Pezeshkian has been able to gather some support because the young crowd has come out. In case if the election results go in favor of Masoud Pezeshkian, that would be a surprise or a rather shock to the right-wing conservatives who were previously ruling the government when President Raisi was in power.
Whoever assumes office next will play a key role in diplomatic talks, especially after Washington imposed fresh sanctions as voting in Iran began. Moreover, the incoming president will also be a successor to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei as Iran's supreme leader. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
In 2016, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman launched Vision 2030, a $1 trillion project that wanted to diversify Saudi Arabia's economy. Now, 8 years later, all does not seem well with that project. The next report tells you more.
All does not seem to be well with Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 plan. The initiative, which was adopted by the Arab Kingdom to diversify its economy and reduce reliance on oil production and export, seems to be in major financial trouble. It has been almost 8 years since Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman announced his economic reform plan in 2016. But the gap between Saudi's objectives and the reality of fund crunch is widening. Foreign investment is barely trickling in. The country's reserves are bleeding money to keep the ambitious, futuristic real estate and infrastructure projects afloat. While there are numerous projects as part of Vision 2030, one in particular has always been in the spotlight. NEOM, touted as the world's biggest construction project, is reportedly being scaled back. The official announcement on recalibration is expected soon. The question that arises here is, did the Arab kingdom undertake an over-ambitious project? NEOM is being funded by the Saudi government through its public investment fund. As per the official records, NEOM is supposed to cost $500 billion. In comparison to Saudi's economy and fiscal standing, that is 50% more than the country's federal budget for 2024. It doesn't end here. Independent evaluation by experts reveals that executing the full project will ultimately cost over $2 trillion. It appears that the Arab kingdom is now stuck in a vicious cycle. The country is finding alternatives to fund the very same ambitious project, the goal for which was to diversify and expand revenue for Saudi Arabia. Another reason why the kingdom is struggling to stick to the timeline owes to a decline in oil prices, the single most important and substantial stream of revenue for Saudi Arabia. The low oil prices have now forced the government to tap into other avenues to rake up capital. Earlier this month, the country sold shares from its national oil company Saudi Aramco. The shares sold were worth more than $11 billion. As per reports, most of the money is expected to be routed to the PIF. Additionally, Saudi Arabia also sold off government bonds to ensure a stream of funding, amid dismal funding from international investors and private firms. Experts say that regional volatility and certain ideological regulatory frameworks might be getting in the way.
Yemen. The Houthi Ansarullah rebels have announced and launched a new missile. What does this mean for what's going on in the Red Sea? We tell you more. That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, always bringing you reports, facts, and ground news from the world's most volatile region. I am your host, Radi Francis, signing off from Beirut, Lebanon. For more global news, keep on watching WION World as One.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural